What's up everyone? CMHC Spring Market Housing Report was just released and I'm going to tell you why it doesn't apply to Toronto coming right up. Hey, what's up everyone? If you're here joining me for the first time, my name is Fred, and I post new videos here every single week, bringing you the best real estate tips and market news. So if you're new here, consider subscribing and let's talk about this report. CMHC is the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. Their main goal is to help Canadians with affordable housing, and they do this by providing mortgage insurance to the lenders that give out mortgages to buyers that might otherwise be at risk of defaulting. And they also publish a number of reports every year, which can be found on their website. The specific one that we're talking about is an 18-page document, and the link to the report can be found in the description below. And I read this report as soon as it came out, and I want to share with you now my thoughts and opinions on how this outlook relates to the Toronto real estate market, or rather how it doesn't relate to the market. And just a quick disclaimer, these are my thoughts and opinions of the report and how I believe it should be interpreted for the Toronto market. And I'm not disputing the report's level of accuracy or the message that it intends to convey. These are just simply my opinions and mine alone. Alright, so the first thing that I have to say is that this report is causing quite a bit of panic all around the country, because it essentially says that Canadian housing markets will take several years before they begin to recover. And this sort of news is what's going to get people's attention right now because of the large focus on it, and unfortunately it is not reporting a positive outlook. While some of the information might turn out to be accurate, they do go on to say in the report that the future state of the housing market is unpredictable. The very first thing that you see in the report is that the housing outlook is subject to uncertainty due to the pandemic. And what they're essentially trying to carefully say here is that they actually have no clue what's going to happen over the next year. But then it also goes on to say that following large declines in 2020, housing starts, sales, and prices are expected to start to recover by mid-2021. So even though they mentioned that there's no real way to tell how the Canadian real estate market will look like over the next few years, they forecast that the current situation will only start to get better in a year from now, which I suppose is possible because this report is for all of Canada and not just Toronto. And because we've also started to see prices in Toronto slowly starting to climb back up, which can definitely be just a temporary upswing before things start to go down again. But to me, it's obvious that Torontonians are anxious to make a move. And I have a full playlist on how the Toronto market is trending, which you can check out in the card up top. In fact, I'm going to share with you something that you would have never guessed seeing in this current market right now. A home listing I was working on with a client recently had a total of 51 offers registered. And what that means is that there were 51 individual buyers putting an offer on a single property. This is in Toronto during the pandemic and during the lockdown. And let's call that top secret information that you're not really going to hear or see anywhere else, that clearly shows what's going on in the Toronto market right now. It tells us that buyers are confident and active, and they should be because prices are still down by an average of 18% from the peak of this year. Now pair that information with what you can find in my weekly report, and you'll quickly realize why I believe that the Toronto market will bounce back much faster than the rest of Canada. This market outlook that CMHC put out on May 27th essentially breaks things down into three sections. The first section has to do with the construction of new homes. CMHC predicts that new housing starts will fall in 2020, which I agree with. And they also forecast that new construction will only get better in the first half of 2021. Now, assuming this is true, what this also means is that Canada's housing market will be working with a short supply of homes. And a short supply of homes is one of the key elements to creating a seller's market. But a seller's market requires a second element, which is an active pool of buyers. And we know that at least in Toronto, buyers are still active despite the impacts of COVID-19. In fact, I don't see a big impact in this area as time goes by, because if buyer confidence is already there in Toronto, then imagine what it could look like once international travel is allowed again. Travel restrictions to the city have impacted population growth that we would have normally seen in the city due to immigration. And once people can travel again, it should only be a matter of time before they enter the real estate market as buyers, which will also create more competition in the buyer pool and also ultimately driving prices up. But there's still a third element in order to have a seller's market, which is a homeowner's willingness to sell their home. So a certain level of confidence and motivation is required in sellers to put their homes on the market. And right now I can think of at least three reasons that can impact a seller's motivation. The first one is job loss, which in this unfortunate situation can leave homeowners with a mortgage that they can no longer afford. And because of this, downsizing to practical levels of affordability is in fact necessary and no longer a choice during these times. The second reason that can fuel seller motivation is job opportunity. If someone can't find a job in the city, they might be inclined to pack up their lives and move as far as another province in order to find a new job. And to me, this isn't a bad idea, especially if the level of freedom is there and it's an option for you, because home prices and rents tend to be higher in Toronto in comparison to other areas. The third reason why a seller might be motivated to sell right now is because, well, for any other reason that they might have already been thinking about. If they were already planning to sell and they're okay with the prices that they can get right now, then why not follow through with that plan? But even after saying all that, this level of confidence is far from being 100% there right now, because the rise in job losses and unemployment created a high level of financial uncertainty that was caused by the pandemic. The second section in the market outlook has to do with home sales, and CMHC actually forecasts that there will be a rise in home sales by the end of this year, but they also think that they won't be at levels pre-COVID-19 until sometime in 2023. And to me, that's a very intense forecast to say that the Canadian housing market won't pick up for the next 2.5 years. And while I guess that is entirely possible, I don't see that being the case with Toronto. Because if you have been following the weekly market updates for Toronto that I put out, then you already know that home sales have actually been rising in Toronto for the past several weeks. In fact, sales in May are already higher than the previous month by 12%, and the month isn't even over yet. So while it's entirely possible that sales will be slow to pick up in all of Canada, we're already seeing signs that the Toronto market will be somewhat of an exception and might be quicker to bounce back. The third and final section talks about home prices in Canada. CMHC forecasts that home prices will start to go back up in the first half of 2021. And if unemployment and immigration continue to stay status quo, then this could definitely have a negative impact on home prices around the country. But also keep in mind that the forecast is weighed down by provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan, because they're expected to see the recession drag out much longer, and this is based on how they're heavily impacted by the oil industry. So I think the biggest takeaway from this report should be that you should definitely do your research to see how it relates to where you live, especially when the report is heavily based on speculation and a high degree of uncertainty. Remember, it does say that the precise timing and speed of the recovery is highly uncertain because the virus's future path is not yet known. And if you gain value from this video, hit the like button and also hit subscribe to stay in touch to learn more about the Toronto real estate market. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.